Maybe like this? Something like that for third place? Because these are all the best of books. This is, I don't know if I want to quite call it the best of Tamara Pierce's writing, but other people have, and I really wouldn't disagree with them for saying so. Hello, thanks for checking this out. This video, I'm going to be talking about Tamara Pierce's Protector of the Small series, specifically the second, third, and fourth book in the series. Tamara Pierce is my favorite young adult fantasy author. She has been for a very long time. Primarily, she was publishing between 1983 and 2018. These books came out between 1999 and 2002. These books being the Protector of the Small series. First test, as I said, you can check out that video if you want my thoughts on this. It's the best edited of the series, but that's because it's so small, and at this time there was a strict page limit on how long young adult fantasy books could be. Odds are, clicking on this video, I assume you probably have read the Protector of the Small series, maybe recently, maybe a long time ago, but I'm going to kind of come at this video for those who haven't read it, don't care about spoilers. Spoiler alert, always, for Protector of the Small series, specifically for the Tortallin canon generally, or Tamara Pierce literature overall, because I don't have a script, I don't really know what I'm going to say. I'm going to talk about Tamara Pierce, I'm going to talk about the Protector of the Small. Spoilers entail, spoilers abound, spoilers will be there. I want more people to read Tamara Pierce. That's kind of why I went ahead and started this channel and started these videos. I'm just going to talk about all of them, but I do have notes, so I will just flip through my notes, say what I want to say. I love this series, and I hope you're okay with the unscripted, enthusiastic literature content of some kind. I am actually halfway through talking about this book, and I realized I've been talking for an hour. At the beginning, I said I was going to talk about the second book, Page, the third book, and the fourth book. Now that I've realized I've been recording for an hour, I'm only talking about Page, the second book in the Protector of the Small series by Tamara Pierce. Thank you for checking this out. Starting with the second book in the series, Page. When I opened this to start thinking about what kind of script I wanted to do, the thing I notice immediately, again, is Lalasa. 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 Lalasa's name can be found in this book almost as much as the protagonist. If you haven't read the series, you don't know who our protagonist is. This is Keladry of Midwinter. She is the first girl openly pursuing her knighthood in over 100 years. The last woman to become a knight did so by disguising herself as a boy for her 8 or 7 years of knighthood training. Kel doesn't have to hide her gender, but she has to deal with all the people who don't want girls to be knights. The first book was First Test. She was on probation. She had to prove that she was able to keep up with the boys, and by the end of it, she more than proved her ability to keep up with the boys. I really appreciate the first book for how tightly edited it is. It introduces a lot of character and arc elements that grow and progress throughout the series. Okay, this one picks right up with her first day, second year of Page training. She's finished her physical morning workout. She's already tired. Now she has to run all the way back to the palace to bathe in her room because there's no facilities for female bathing in the training grounds where the guys are washing up real quick. So she's running back, and on her way back, she crosses paths with a dog, and the dog is being chased by a butcher because he stole a bunch of sausages. Kel is the Protector of the Small, even though she hasn't grown into that name yet. She's not going to let somebody hurt a dog. She's not going to let somebody hurt somebody who's smaller than them when she has the means to buy the sausages and resolve the situation quickly and get the dog somewhere safe. She's not supposed to have dogs as a page, not supposed to have any pets. She's going to take the dog, she thinks, to the Wild Mage. We met the Wild Mage in the first book. Her name is Daine. She has the Immortals series, which came before the Protector of the Small series. Daine is really cool. I will be talking more about Daine soon. But that's her plan with the dog. She's going to take the dog back to her room, and then after class, she will take the dog to the Wild Mage, who will take care of the dog. In her room, there is Gower. Gower is the servant who is assigned to her by the palace to bring her hot water in the morning, help her pick up her room, little things like that to make life easier for nobility in training to become a knight. Gower is there with a young woman who is his niece, and he is ready to get on his knees to beg Kel to hire his niece to keep her safe. A packed intro. These are all within the first 10 or 15 pages that are really showing you Kel's determination, some of the odds that Kel is up against, and also she can't turn away if somebody somebody needs help. So she's always going to step up. Her family is not particularly rich for nobility. They're kind of new nobility. And she has a bunch of older siblings who also went through knighthood, sisters who are looking to make marriages right now. So her parents don't have a ton of extra money, but she says she will figure something out and she will hire this girl. Because Lalasa, it's not clear how much older than she is than Kel, but I think 4 years is probably about how much older that she is than Kel. And Kel is 11. So Lalasa is a young woman whose entire family was killed the year before, and she's been harassed in the palace since then because she's very pretty and she's shy, and people take that as an invitation. If she is the maid of a noble, other servants and other nobles are not going to mess with her because she belongs to Kel. So to mess with her is to mess with Kel. And Kel's family, though not rich, is favored right now. One last thing I want to say about Gower, because he does not have a lot of page presence through the series. In fact, I don't even know that he's mentioned in the second 2 books of the series. But I appreciate his character because he demonstrates how effective Tamara Pierce can be with very few words. He's introduced as someone who's very grim. He is the only person that Kel is ever intimidated by in the entire series. The only time the word intimidated is used is in that first book when she meets him, and he is so glum that she's like, I don't know how to deal with this, so I'm just going to smile and keep going. And that's how she's dealt with him. She's continued to be polite and kind to him because she thinks he's unhappy. Now we get to the beginning of book 2 and you realize his family was killed and all that's left is his niece, and his niece, who he brought to the palace, is being harassed and he doesn't know what to do about it. So he does have some things going on that would make him sad. But here she is with this dog that she knows she's not supposed to have, and he's asking her to hire his niece, and she says yes. And her next thing is, so about the dog, and his answer is, what dog? Perfect. He's not going to get her in trouble for this, especially not when she's helping him right now. And then he only has really one other line in the series. And she asks Lalasa why he's always so glum. And she's like, he's in a great mood. What are you talking about? So it just demonstrates how it's about your familiarity with people. And also realizing that almost every single line that he says is something sarcastic and to the point. I just wanted to sort of give him his flowers for a moment because I don't think I'll be talking about him again. But Lalasa will come up a lot. When I sat down to try and do this originally, I was going to try and script it because I hadn't scripted any of my videos yet. The Lalasa got me to, I wanted to structure it around Kel's friendships. Because Kel's relationships and friendships are really an integral part to the series of her building a support network, especially and particularly among people who did not initially think she belonged there at all. So there are more than one example of female friendships for Kel within this, but Lalasa is her closest female friendship, at least here during her girlhood years. It's kind of interesting now that I'm thinking about it. Paige is 11, 12, 13, in the beginning of 14. She's with Lalasa every day, all the time. That is her closest female friendship. And then she also knows Daine, who is an older woman. Daine is 7 years older than Kel. That's that kind of friendship. Point was, there's a transition as Kel gets older in the series. Lalasa stays in the palace setting, so she does not travel with Kel, although she is referred to fondly in each of the later books. Daine, however, that friendship grows because now Kel is moving more into the active war part of the world, and that is where Daine is as well. The next friendship that we see immediately is Neil. Neil is Kel's best friend, platonic best friends for life. I love their relationship. I love how sarcastic they are with each other. Kel gets to be straightforward and honest with Neil. She's never dishonest with people, but she will control and conceal the truth of how she feels, and she will manage a situation as necessary. She's good with people. She's good at behaving in a way that gets people to calm down, that leads people to see things her way. She is able to diplomatically lead people to see things her way most of the time. And she's also gifted with a physicality that allows her to back up whatever she has to enforce if necessary. She's guarded, controlled in that way. With Neil, she doesn't have to be. It leads a little bit to her crush. I had a follow-up video where I talked about her crush more, so check that out, I guess. I don't want to get too far into that, but she does later on in this book develop a crush on her best friend Neil. I think that's mostly because he was like the safe one. Not consciously that she was thinking about this guy is safe to crush on, but just that's the way that kind of works sometimes. Actually, Neil himself sort of says it. He has his infatuations with other noble ladies that are either a little bit older than him or otherwise unattainable because they're betrothed or something. So he just writes his poetry in his room and bemoans about his unrequited love to his friends. But she sort of asked him at one point, why don't you just go talk to these ladies? He's like, I would rather suffer in private rather than know that they're laughing at me. So he's acknowledged that it's safer to sort of keep it private and secret. Kel's kind of in the same position with him. She has her goals, and that never wavers. Her fixation on her goals never wavers, and getting involved with her best friend would be a distraction from her goals. Neil, as her best friend, is a support for those goals, and that is blah, blah, blah. Still in the first chapter, the next person we meet is Joran, who is the thorn in Kel's side for the early part of her training years. He's a bully, described as a beautiful boy. He is athletically inclined, so he's good at the knighthood thing. He just really is dead set against Kel becoming a knight, and that ends up being to his detriment later on. Alright, so Kel's in trouble for being late because of the dog and because of talking to Lalasa, so we meet Wyldon, who is the training master. He's a little bit of a polarizing figure, Wyldon is, if you watch videos about Protector of the Small. He's definitely presented in the book as somebody that you're supposed to admire, appreciate, not because he's perfect, but because he grows. In fact, he's really a jerk in the first two books pretty consistently, but by the end of the second book, he is acknowledging the fact that Kel has forced him to change. Wyldon is set up as an adversary, but not an enemy. He's hard on Kel, but I am of the opinion that in the second book, he is not harder on her than he is on the other boys. He's pretty hard on everybody. Oh, at the very end of the chapter is Wyldon talking to Kel about her duty to Lalasa, because that's outlining it both for Kel, so it's clear for her what her expectations are, and it's clear for the reader what the expectations are of her duty to her new maid. And then we also meet Kitten. Kitten I talked about. Kitten has a short story in Tortall and Other Lands. She is the foster dragonling of Daine. And I bring this up because the first thing, Kel just straight up treats Kitten with respect. She respects the intelligence of this dragon creature, introduces her to Jump as if she is any other person. That kind of behavior highlights for Daine why Kel is a person worth her time. Daine doesn't particularly love humans because she's the wild maid. She's intimately connected to animals. So she experiences humanity more from the perspective of animals than from the perspective of another human. So a human who treats animals like other humans is a human that Daine will have the time of day for. In the first chapter, so that lunch meal that Kel was late to because of Jump and Lalasa, and then she got discipline work for from Wyldon, we also meet her core group of friends. I don't have my list in front of me. I just pulled up the list I had made when I thought I was going to do an outline or a script for this video. So, at the lunch, we meet her core group of friends. There is Prince Roald, who is the crown prince of the kingdom. They are not the most close, but Kel is in a position already to be an advisor to the next king. He's very different from his father, Jon the King. We got to experience Jon as a young boy as well in the Song of the Lioness series, which is the first quartet that Tamara Pierce published in the 1980s. Jon, kind of an asshole. He was then, he kind of still is, he just kind of has a nice veneer over it now. He had no problem exercising his royal authority kind of to bully other boys. He was more than willing to gang up on another kid for beating up another kid, rather than something more equal. Roald is not willing to do that. In the first book, Kel takes up an anti-bully, anti-hazing patrol. Joran and his group of boys will pick on first years, not necessarily beat them up, but insult them, push them down, trap them in a corner, and make them do stupid things, kind of that. Kel was not going to tolerate that, and eventually this core group of her friends start patrolling with her, and then they become a group that's too big for these bully boys to continue to seek out victims to bother. Roald wants to help, but doesn't want to abuse his royal authority, so he doesn't participate. That is kind of the nature of their friendship in that way. Like Kel is kind of his muscle, actually, in a way. But he's the crown prince. He's protected. He is going to have a hard time coming to his full flowering with the parents that he has and the personality that he has. But he and Kel are well matched anyway. So he's a good part of her core group of friends. Then there's the trio, Esmond, Sever, and Faleron. Esmond and Sever are Kel's age mates along with Merric, and then Neil is not their age mate, but he is their year mate. He's 5 years older than these other kids, other boys. He enlisted to become a page after his two older brothers, who were already knights, were killed, and he felt his family needed to have a knight, and so he abandoned his healer training to become a healer mage to become a knight instead. So he's older than them, but Sever and Esmond and Merric, who I'll get to in a minute, are Kel's age mates in their year. And then Falarin is a year older. Falarin is Merric's older cousin. And I put Lol next to his because he gets forgotten in a way that clearly entertains me, but it really comes up later in Lady Night, so I'll hold on to that for a minute. But they fill out Kel's friendship group, so it's not just her and like 3 other people, but it's like her and 7 other people, so it's a true group of people, and that becomes necessary and relevant in the 4th book. And then we have Merric. Merric is the most contentious friendship, I think from Kel's perspective, actually more than Merric's. Merric is a redhead, freckles. He didn't want to stand out, and he did not want to be friends with the girl in the first year. But he happened to be the first boy that Kel saw getting picked on by Joran and his group of bullies, and she ran away the first time, or walked away because she wasn't sure at that point how she should respond to that situation. But she had never in her life before walked away from a fight with a bully, and she realized that she was not going to be able to live with herself if she did that. The next time that she came across them picking on Merric, she fought these older boys, and Merric ran away. Merric was angry at her for interfering, but it was something that Kel had already experienced before because she had helped other people when she's always been an anti-bully child since she was at least 4 years old. She's been in fights before, she's helped people before, and had the people that she helped be mad at her, and her mother kind of explained it's wounded pride in a way. Kel is not about to engage with Merric, she just lets him have his little temper at her and moves on, and part of how she comes up, she's like, it's not about you, it's about the fact that I'm not going to put up with the bullying, it doesn't matter who it is. And then she continues to show up, and Merric swallows his pride eventually and joins their study group, and then joins the anti-bully patrol. He and Kel have a conversation about losing their temper. He basically asks her, like, don't you act like that's one of his defining features, the fact that he loses his temper easily. And he asks her why she does it, and she says, don't you notice that you get tired when you're mad all the time? And he says, well, I get punishment work. And she's like, well, you're tired at the end of that anyway, aren't you? So that's the true cementing of their friendship to me. I feel like from that point forward, Merric no longer had any contentious feeling toward Kel, but Kel was always kind of aware that in this book, Kel is in command of Merric at one point when they're in page training, and she's concerned about how he's going to respond to it. And that same concern comes up again in Lady Night when she's truly in command and he is truly under her command. But he's like, what? Raise a glass of wine. You're the one that I would want in charge above all others. It takes years for her to accept that Merric is okay with her after how that friendship started. Also at the table, we have Cleon. Cleon is the other redhead who is as slow to anger as Merric is quick to. I think something like that is the dialogue line in there. Cleon is a big fellow. He is a good-natured guy. He is silly with Kel in a way that the other guys aren't. Eventually, he evolves his infatuation with Kel. I assume that more than one boy at some point went through some sort of crush or infatuation with Kel. I'm a reader and I have a crush on Kel because Kel, I mean, if you have a competency kink, you're gonna like Kel. Like I said, she is gifted with a physical prowess that allows her to reinforce whatever she has to. By the end of the series, she's 5'10" or 5'11", and she has exercised herself to the point that she is built like an oak tree. These boys, these guys, get to watch her and participate with her becoming this, and she's known to be a menace in the practice yards. Merric asks her, right, why don't you lose your temper? Well, when she's stressed about something or she is upset about something, she takes it out on the practice yards. And I think they figure that out over time, because at one point when she says, you know, I'll meet you in the practice yards to somebody jokingly, the friend's response was, it was nice knowing you. She has demonstrated to these guys and proven herself to these guys. And I just assume that in a group of at least 20 or 30 boys, more than just Cleon had an interest in Kel. But because of Kel's stone-faced demeanor, because of her position, like I said, people aren't going to want to mess with her. If they have respect for her, they're not going to try to destabilize her. The only person among the boys who really questions her about, like, did you think you weren't going to be able to find a husband, is Joran. So yeah, Cleon. Good boy, big boy, honest about his crush on Kel when it evolves later on, and gives you that little glimpse into the probability that others did as well. In the second chapter, Kel meets Owen. Owen is a new first year. Owen is the first person to immediately back her in a fight. He does not run away. Joran and these other two boys are telling him to clean up spilling. He's like, what are you talking about? There's nothing spilled here. So he's not taking their crap. They push him down. It looks like they've pulled his hair. Kel is wearing a dress, kilts it up, and gets herself involved in the fight. And Owen throws himself into the fight as well. Kel teaches him in that moment that you don't tell Lord Wyldon that you were in a fight. You tell him you fell down. Even though everybody knows you were fighting, it's an unspoken rule that if you break will get you ostracized from page training. And Kel is against the bullying, but she is in favor of tradition. I said it in a previous video. I think this behavior of Kel's, where she says, I fell down, and she follows the unspoken policy, which is against the rules, is one of the true ways that she demonstrates to Wyldon that she does belong, that she can be in this brotherhood of knights. Hi! Rosie's done with her nap, I guess, but I'm not done with this video by a long shot. So how are we going to resolve this, you and me? You gonna get up here with me? What? Yes, you're very cute, but what? Come on. Come on. Come on. There you go. Alright, so now I have Rosie. I hope Rosie chooses to lay down and take a nap behind me. We're gonna see how this goes. So that's chapter 2. We meet Owen. Owen is a good, reliable friend who always comes through for Kel. Owen, like Neil, never questions Kel's right to be there pursuing her knighthood or her abilities. We get into chapter 3. We see more of Lalasa's extreme fear and discomfort around men. It's extreme. Like Gower, Kel is a little bit overwhelmed by Lalasa's nervousness because to Kel it doesn't make sense. Kel hasn't experienced what Lalasa has. Kel wants to teach Lalasa self-defense. Lalasa is reluctant to learn. I think it's that she's afraid that if she knows how to fight, it's going to invite people to fight with her, and that's not what she would want at this point. I'm several minutes into this and I haven't mentioned yet that Kel has a unknown benefactor or sponsor who will send her high quality and expensive gifts that are useful for her training. Right at the beginning of this book, she receives some magic bruise balm, which helps heal a black eye and other minor injuries. They've given her things like a knife before, a saddle for her horse, cleaning kit for her armor and her weapons, things like that. And there's going to be more expensive gifts as the years go on. The significant point being, like, Kel sees all the people who don't want her to succeed or who want her to quit. And then there's this one person who refuses to let her know who it is that is also clearly telling her, don't give up. She takes great comfort in that. Jump, our friendly puppy, serves to comfort Lalasa, making her more comfortable with Kel because if someone's going to be nice to animals, then we'll see. And then we also learn through Jump that Lord Wyldon not only loves dogs, but in the subsequent conversation is in fact a dog breeder. It's what his family is known for. Tamara Pierce is not afraid of having villains who also love animals and are kind to them while they are brutal to humans. But in Lord Wyldon's case, this is one who is petting the dog because he is someone who pets the dog. In chapter 3, there's a fight that breaks out in the stable. This is the other scene that supports my idea that there are boys who have crushes on Kel. Falarin asks Kel for some help with a mathematics problem. One of the bully boys makes a remark about, oh, you're friends so you can have her whenever you want now. Falarin goes to move to fight him and Kel is like, stop, it's a fart with consonants, I don't care. Falarin calms down, lets it go. I think Falarin had a crush on Kel and the other bully boy either knew it or suspected or whatever, just got lucky and picked on it. Then Neil, Kel's friend, Neil is pointing out, I know you're homophobic, so I'm going to make a comment about you boys sleeping together because that's going to upset you. And his logic, as he explains to Kel, is pointing out that gossip goes two ways. If they're going to talk about her reputation, people are going to talk about their reputation. So Neil makes a remark that sets off an actual brawl that destroys the stable. All the guys get involved. Some of the guys like Kel and Prince Roald are trying to pull people out of the fight. Then the horses get involved. This is a demonstration of Daine's unintended influence on the animals in the palace, making them more intelligent and able to communicate with their human counterparts. Most of the horses break up the fight by simply stepping between the boys. Kel's horse is Peachblossom. I haven't told you about Peachblossom in this video. Peachblossom has a temper. Kel refers to Peachblossom as her true temper. He steps on people's hands and does not care if their fingers get broken. Bites somebody on the shoulder to pull them out of the fight. Luckily, they have a practice jacket on that keeps them from getting too injured. Then the adults come in and break up the fight. But it was put in early, and I feel like it was a way for Tamara Pierce not to have to continually address the fact that it comes up that people refer to Kel as somebody with no reputation, as a slut. She's either becoming a knight because she thinks she'll never get a husband, or as a way to trap a husband kind of situation. Rather than let that be a focus, it's in this one dramatic early instance of, if you're going to talk like this, it's going to be a big problem, so let's not do that. Kind of in the same vein, unhelpfully for the topic, Kel, at the start of the book, is 11. She starts to go into puberty. Her body starts to develop, and, she starts to get her boobs. And that changes Lalasa's dynamic towards Kel. It makes her more comfortable with Kel. Even though obviously Kel is a girl, she does come across quite boyish in her interests and her behaviors, most likely, which might have caused some stress and confusion for Lalasa with her anti-male feelings. But then here's Kel, who is being stressed out by the fact that she's clearly a woman. So it allows Lalasa to be a little bit more comfortable with her and not run away just from Kel doing her practice in her room. Later on that same day, Kel finds Lalasa cornered by another servant. She witnesses exactly what Lalasa has been experiencing for the past year. Lalasa is afraid that Kel is going to think that she was lying, that she was dallying, that this was her fault. And Kel is like, I understood that situation. You clearly didn't want to be there, but it's time for you to learn some self-defense so that when you tell people no, you can reinforce that no. So that begins that process. It's amazing how these roots are laid in by Tamara Pierce, and they become trees in later books that are just part of this grand forest. Kel starts teaching Lalasa self-defense here, even though Lalasa doesn't want to. And it's for the next 3 years. I imagine they continue to practice at least every week, multiple times, for the rest of the time that Lalasa was Kel's maid. Lalasa has intensive, continuous training for 3 years with Kel. After Kel, to the next book, becomes a squire, she's no longer at the palace, but Lalasa is also no longer... Lalasa tells her she'll always be her maid, but Lalasa is no longer employed as her maid. Over the course of the book, she is able to get her own independent business. A few nights a week, we find out in Squire, she closes her shop early to teach self-defense to girls in the city. I'm getting kind of off track here, but at the same time, I want you, who for whatever reason is watching this, I really deeply appreciate it so much. If you haven't read this book, I really want you to check it out. We've got Kel and Lalasa, and an unrelated topic is Adria from the Tortal and Other Lands series of short stories. Adria is a girl from another country who leaves to go to Tortal. She's a girl from an abusive home who's going to be studying at the university in Chorus. And I have a headcanon that somebody is eventually going to lead Adria to Lalasa. There's so much potential for these connections here. And that's why I enjoy Tamara Pierce. I like a world where there's a world beyond the story itself. So Lalasa starts learning self-defense after Kel witnesses she's still being harassed. And the other important part of her starting to teach Lalasa is Kel beginning to learn that she likes to teach. Lalasa is her first student, but not her last. There's some politics in the background because Rolls' arranged marriage to a Yamani princess is disrupted by her death in an earthquake. Kel's family has gotten their recent favor because they've arranged this diplomatic relationship between the Yamani Islands and Tortal. So they're going to have to go through that process again, but hopefully a little quicker. Going through the holiday season, Kel demonstrates her growing support network among the pages because the bullies organize some mischief that really interferes with a bunch of the other pages. They get embarrassed in public, dishes get messed up, clothing gets messed up, gossip starts going around. The teachers are not quite aware of what's going on, but it's impacting them to the point that they're giving punishment work to these kids because it's like, why are you all having such a problem? And Kel confronts the bullies in the mess hall, and it's like, guys, this is making it hard for everyone. And other pages who are not Kel's friends in particular are like, hey, we didn't care if you want to have a problem with her and her friends, but now you are affecting us, so stop, or you're gonna have a problem with everybody. Kind of is the end of the bullying through the series, the petty bullying, because everybody is against the bullies now because they've made it everybody else's problem. Oh, female friendship I forgot to mention. It's kind of small, but it's also still relevant, I think. Uline is a young woman who is sitting at a table with Kel's sisters, actually, and a fourth young woman. Kel's sisters are uncomfortable with her serving their table because, although they love her, Kel is not someone who is spoken of with respect among most of the nobility, because most of the nobility doesn't think it's appropriate for a girl to be pursuing her knighthood. These two sisters want to make good marriages with some families that have some people who don't want Kel to be a knight. Complicated in that moment for them. The other random girl at the table is snarky about it. Uline stands up for Kel, even though she doesn't really know her, and we don't know what kind of relationship she has with Kel's sisters. She's basically just like, hey, there's no reason to be a bitch. Let the girl do her thing. And Uline seeks her out to talk to her again a couple of times, actually. It's just a passing kind of friendship, acquaintanceship, a friendly acquaintanceship. They're cool with each other kind of thing. Uline goes on to become one of the Queen's ladies, which is a hand-selected group of noble women who can ride and shoot and keep up with the Queen if she needs to go hunt or into combat or to rescue situation or something like that. Again, it's Kel's multiple different dynamics of female friendships. Uline isn't mentioned too much by name in later books, but we know that Kel is doing training with Queen's ladies at later times. That friendship probably persists in that way. Midway through the book, as I said earlier, Kel has been having this crush on Neil. Lalasa and her girlfriend clock it. At the end of her second year, she gets her period on the day of exams. Oh my god, I could relate to this one too well. Unlike Alana in The Song of the Lioness, Alana disguising herself as a boy, having no women in her life to tell her what's going on, freaks out when she wakes up one day and she's bleeding. That leads to their whole drama. Kel has had the conversation with her mother. She knows what's happening. I think it's the first time in the series that she cries, but we find out that Kel gets a little bit weepy during her monthlies. Tamara Pierce, she just incorporates the menstrual cycle for her female main characters, all of them. If they are young women when their story starts, then at some point in the story, they have their period. If they are older girls, 16 or 17, and at some point in the story, it's going to be mentioned either they are going to need some tea because they know their cramps are coming, or they're going to make sure they have extra pads because they are on their cycle. And it's just in there because that matters and you need to know how it's taken care of. This also leads to the conversation with her mother later on about anti-pregnancy charms. Kel is just given the autonomy to take care of her body in just a matter-of-fact, straightforward way. In this book, it's mentioned, hey, maybe you should get this anti-pregnancy charm since, now you're capable of becoming pregnant. But Kel's like, I'm much too young for that. So it doesn't really come up again in this book. It comes up again later. Oh, the other point to this delay that she has this first morning of the exams because of her period is highlighting the stress that the pages feel if they're going to be late for these exams. If they're a little bit late, they have to repeat the last year of training. If they're really late, they have to repeat all 4 years of training. Neil is very stressed out. He does not want to be late. He does not want Kel to be late. He does not want to have to repeat any amount of this little experiment of theirs. Neil feels he must become a knight. He does not enjoy the process of becoming a knight. Unlike Kel. And then Prince Roald and Cleon, as well as most of the bully boys, have now graduated to become squires. So for the third and fourth year for Kel, she does not have to deal with so much bullying situations. During the summertime, the pages go on a summer training camp. So this sets up this scene from this cover. They've gone into the hill country where the pages are staying. The training master, Wyldon, has been told by the district commander that there are no bandits in the area. So it is kind of just a survivalist kind of camp setting is what it's supposed to be. Well, when they're out mapping the land at one point, Kel and a group of... Time for me to switch to my other notebook. Okay. And a group of 7 pages. There's most of her friends. Let me just open it up. So they're in this terrain, and Lord Wyldon is sending them out in groups to do some mapping. Kel is with Falarin, Neil, Prosper, who is somebody I haven't mentioned before and never gets mentioned again in the series, Merric, Owen, and Sever. So mostly a group of her friends, excluding Esmond, essentially, and then the older boys who aren't even there anymore. Falarin is the senior page as the 4th year. Neil is the oldest, being 5 years older than all of them, so he's 17. The rest of them are 12. And they stumble upon a camp of bandits. Falarin is the senior page, freezes. Neil, as the oldest boy, freezes. None of them have been in a situation like this without an adult to tell them what to do. And Kel is the one who remains cool-headed. It's been demonstrated before that she stays cool-headed in combat. So in this moment, it's arrows, it's here's our magic users, put up some light to blind them. There's a cliff I haven't mentioned in this video. Cal has a paralyzing fear of heights. In first test, Lord Wyldon forced her to climb a tree to confront her fear of heights. Whenever she had discipline work, he would give her something in like the stable lofts or mapping the city from the wall or something like that forced her to go up on heights. It was a debate between her and Neil if he was trying to break her fear, that was Cal's argument, or if he was trying to break her and make her quit, which was Neil's argument, and Roald settled it with, it's a little bit of both, now stop. And that's probably is true, because from Wyldon's perspective, Cal has great potential, and so this fear of heights will hold her back. And also, Cal is a girl, and he does not think she belongs in combat, so he should make her leave, and this is a way to do it. He stopped doing that so much in the later years. That's part of why I don't think he was harder on her than he was the other boys after the first book. So we're in this combat situation. Kel is taking command. Yeah, and she gets them through it. That's the point. I don't have to really tell you the details of it. You can go ahead and read it and see how cool it is. She has to climb this cliff. She has to get her friends up the cliff. She manages it because of the situation. Then they hold out long enough. The rest of the group heard the call for alarm, and they come and rescue them. And then Kel focuses on making sure everybody else gets safely down and is the last one down the cliff. So everybody's watching as she's going through this terrifying thing for her. And then she throws up at the bottom of the hill. And Lord Wyldon is like, so finally a true taste of combat. Are you ready to go home? And Owen is like, that's not fair. You know she's throwing up because of the heights. She's the one who saved all our bacon. And I, again, think it stands out to Lord Wyldon that her friends are all standing up for her in this moment while she is saying nothing. So they go back home. This fight happened on Kel's 12th birthday. Happy birthday, Kel. This fight is really, the fight that's in this in the hill country, the Battle of the Cliff is what the kids call it later, really is a early sample of different battles and elements that will come up, particularly in Lady Knights. Despite the fact that these bandits did try to kill Kel and her friends, and they are breaking the law in the country that Kel is working to serve, she recognizes that they didn't really, she recognizes that they're suffering too, especially their children in these camps who did not choose to be born to bandits. Something about Kel is she is very intelligent. She is very clever, but she isn't... Complexity is not her thing. Anything it needs to be straightforward. Don't do harm. That's straightforward. Harm exists, and sometimes it's complicated by circumstances that are more than just who's beating up on who. Kel can't fix that. So that's the kind of thing that she kind of turns away from because she doesn't know how to fix circumstance. If she can put her hands on it and build a house, she can do that. But how does she change the system that has led to people who have no lands and no home and no hope? That's bigger than Kel. At the beginning of Kel's 3rd year, we briefly see Sir Gareth, who was Alana's sponsor way back when in the Song of the Lioness series, and he asks Kel to bring a message to the king. The king happens to be at the top of the Needle. The Needle was set up in the first test and mentioned a couple of times in this. It is an extremely tall tower, mostly used for magical far-seeing and other sort of magical workings. It has 2 spiral staircases, one on the inside and then a counter spiral on the outside. It has to do with balancing magical forces. Kel is terrified of heights, but she's going to do her duty and deliver this message as requested of her. She manages the climb up. It's an encounter with the king. I think it's her first one-on-one encounter with the king. And unfortunately for her, her fear of heights paralyzes her when it's time for her to go back down. The king helps her with a little bit of magic, but she's afraid that he's going to make her leave her training now that he knows she's afraid of heights. Luckily, he is not that prejudiced against her. I don't think Jon has anything specifically against Kel. He is frustrated that he has to deal with the situation that she presents, but at the same time, he was going to have to deal with that no matter what. He made the proclamation that clarified that yes, girls could become knights. 10 years went by with no girls stepping forward or no families supporting any of their girls, including Jon himself. His oldest daughter, Callison, wanted to become a knight, and he talked her out of it. He persuaded her out of it, but the deal was that she was going to get to have a say in who her diplomatic marriage would be to. But Jon did it, had this conversation with his daughter while his wife, her mother, the queen, was away. And Thyette did not appreciate him talking their daughter out of what she wanted to do. That was Callison's deal. So Jon was going to have to deal with the situation of a girl becoming a knight one way or another. It just happens to be Kel. and lucky for him. Jon calls her up to talk to her at dinner that night, and she's afraid that's to be dismissed, but it turns out he just wants her version of what happened at the Battle of the Cliff. This leads to changes, a lot of changes actually, in their training regimen. It's discussed later with there's another character who's going to come up soon. So Lord Rowell, I haven't mentioned at all. He's really important. Lord Rowell discusses with Kel later on about why these changes are being made in their training. And it's basically because Wyldon was scared by the fact that those 7 kids could have all been killed if not for Kel keeping a cool head. Maybe they wouldn't have been a complete tragedy, but most likely it would have been. He wants to make sure after this that they can manage themselves in combat situations as soon as possible. Kel loves the lessons in strategy, tactics, battle plan. It's really starting to see through dialogue and the way other people talk to Kel about Kel, that Kel always sees herself as someone who's coming from behind, but she's really not. She holds herself to a perfectionist example, and everybody else is just trying to measure up to her, but she doesn't actually realize that. Among their training is riding with the lance. Jousting. Kel and the other pages have been practicing going at a dummy, where as long as you hit the shield, the sandbag will swing cleanly past you and not hit you. As changing up their training, Wyldon says to Kel, you're becoming complacent because you're not getting walloped by the sandbag, but you're also not improving. So he paints a dot on her shield target, and she now has to hit that dot, and it's a whole thing because she's like, I guess he's right, because I can't hit this dot. Here's the other thing. For Kel, when she first started training on the lance, she could not lift the point of it to hit the shield at all. She got hit by that sandbag over and over and over again. And eventually she discovered that this is because there was lead weights put inside of her training lance by some of the bully boys. For her first year and for her second year, well, in her first year, when her lance first shattered, the bully boys were still there and had another lance prepared for her that was weighted. Ultimately, she was able to hit the target. So with this extra heavy weighted lance, she is able to keep up with and excel at this jousting training. Now we're in her third year. The bully boys aren't there anymore. When her lance shatters, there isn't a weighted replacement ready for her, actually. Then she tries with a regular practice lance, and she's all off target, and Wyldon is like, what the hell is wrong with you? Why is your head in the clouds today? And she's like, can I take this to the smithy and get it weighted? He's like, what are you talking about? And Neil speaks up and he says, surely Lord Wyldon, you knew that Keladry was practicing with weighted weapons all this time. This is actually the first time as a reader that we do find out that Kel has been practicing with weighted weapons all this time. We knew her lance was weighted, but this is where she tells him and us that it was too weird going between the heavy weighted lance and the lighter practice staff and practice sword, so she had those weighted as well. Wyldon is just like, this is one of those moments, in the tags, I think he's proud of her, and he doesn't know how to deal with it. Because she went above and beyond. Even when he was laying on more crap the year before, 2 years ago, she was taking on more for herself. So he says, go. He doesn't give her discipline work or anything else like that. He's just, go, take care of your horse first. They say in this conversation that it was since the first week on the lance. And if he remembers, he was yelling at her, get the point up, when she was trying those first few weeks. Has he thought about the fact that somebody else must have weighted that first lance? Or does he just think that she decided to do that from the start to make it harder for herself? Either way, he didn't know. Moving forward, so Lalasa. This is Lalasa's second year with Kel. Lalasa loves sewing, and she's very good at it. And Kel's sisters have noticed it. They probably noticed that Kel's clothes, despite the fact that they were very paid uniform, same as everybody else, nevertheless fit and looked really good on her. And so they start hiring Lalasa to tailor their own clothes and make their own gowns. Tian is Lalasa's girlfriend who works for one of Kel's sisters, and she's basically like, other ladies are probably also going to commission Lalasa. So Lalasa has started to get money that is besides what Kel has been paying her, and it's legal for nobles to take most of what servants earn because those servants belong to them, and therefore their wages belong to those nobles. Kel's not going to do that. Now Lalasa is finally dreaming of a future for herself and what she might do. Now we are halfway through Kel's third year, and we cross paths with Lord Rowell again. We like Lord Rowell. He is somebody who has always given Kel the time of day and respect and been very forthright with her in terms of what's going on. And this is also a moment to establish height. So Kel, currently at 12 years old, is 5 feet 6 inches tall. This is where they have their conversation about the changes that Wyldon has been making and just in general. So this is Ralph sort of feeling out where Kel's at in her training in general. She admires him as a person and as a knight. She's starting to think this is the kind of knight she might want to be. It's just a chill encounter between the two of them, but necessary for sort of building the relationship that they're going to have later. Midway through her third year is also where it's becoming clear to the reader, but not to Kel, that Cleon and the way the silly way that he talks to her started to become more real to him. He was being silly with her for some reason. I think it was like a disarming kind of thing. He would just use like flowery nicknames or poetic language sometimes when he would talk to her. And I think it was a sort of disarming thing. I'm acknowledging that you're a girl, but I'm still going to treat you with respect as a fighter, and I'm making it lighthearted for everybody else around us. But now it's starting to become, oh, this might actually mean something to him. One of my favorite scenes happens during this Midwinter season 2. Boys are all, this is again one of those scenes that's indicating to me that some of the boys have crushes on Kel, because they're all getting very physically close to her in this moment, to the point that she's not like uncomfortable, but she's like, these boys are being so silly because it's Midwinter. And there's Owen, and he kind of like wedges himself in between her and somebody else, and it feels very little brother to me, like, let me just make sure this situation doesn't get too close. But that whole moment also leads to Neil waxing on about his latest infatuation, which is the queen, and all the other pages take breadsticks and beat him with the breadsticks until they fall into crumbs. Less happily. So we're getting into, are we in the 4th year now? Okay, so now we're getting towards the end of the 3rd year. One of the bully boys, his name is Vincent. I haven't mentioned him by name yet, but he is the most scummy of the bully boys, and that's been very subtly indicated from his very first dialogue line. Here he is, a squire, and he attacks Lalasa. He catches her in the window and pulls her out of the window, tries to kiss her, and Kel luckily, oh, she doesn't just come across it. One of the sparrows, oh my gosh, I haven't even mentioned the sparrows. Kel has sparrows. There were sparrows that lived in Kel's courtyard, and she started feeding them, and because of the Daine effect, their intelligence level is heightened. They are fond of Kel, they protect Kel, they fight for Kel, they scout and spy for Kel. Well, one of the sparrows comes to her when she's studying with her friends. Kel thinks the sparrow got locked out or something, got locked inside, and she goes to find Lalasa being attacked by Vincent. This sparrow went and got her to protect Lalasa. Lalasa's fighting back. I think there's a pretty decent chance she would have been able to hold off Vincent long enough for somebody to come along, based on the description of the scene. In this moment, Kel thinks to herself for the first time she understands how somebody could do murder. White fury blazed in Kel's heart. She stalked forward, battling to keep her feelings in hand, as she said coldly, "Unhand my maid." Lalasa's eyes widened. Peg, a cautious bird, fled Kel's shoulder for the safety of the room. The sparrows attacking Vincent did the same. Vincent half turned to look at her, still holding Lalasa. Kel could see the furrowed gouges of a woman's fingernails down the older boy's face. "If I were you, Lump, I'd walk away right now." He used the nickname she rarely heard these days. Kel didn't argue. Pivoting on her right foot, she furled her left leg up to her inner thigh and snapped the foot out. Rather than shatter Vincent's kneecap, she hit just above it where the thigh muscle narrowed. He lurched, knocking Lalasa against the window frame, then let go. Lalasa scrambled back inside Kel's room, tears streaming down her face. And she proceeds to confront him. But that was her hero moment for Lalasa. And this boy is the same height as her. He's older than her. He's 3 years older than her. But he's unwilling to fight back against her in this moment because he's wrong in every way. She's ready to challenge him as noble to noble. And Lalasa talks her out of it because it's Lalasa's reputation that would suffer, not his. He's got family. He's got money. They can bury her. Lalasa points out to her. Let me just go ahead and keep reading it. Because Kel in this moment is like, this is wrong. He needs to be reported. What he just did is bad. And Lalasa says it'll be worse if you do. She says, "I'm reporting this." "My lady, no," cried Lalasa. She lunged out of the window to grab Kel's sleeve. "Don't tell. They'll talk until I've no reputation. That's how things are in servants' hall." She hung on to Kel with both hands and lowered her voice. "Nobles can make a girl's life a misery. They always do. Please don't report this." "He must be reported," she told Lalasa quietly. "He'll do it again." "Please, my lady," pleaded Lalasa, "put yourself in my shoes. You'll get me in trouble. His kind can make it hard for servants. He speaks to his mother, who speaks to the chamberlain, who speaks to a steward, who puts my uncle out of work. How will you know it was done? How will you know it even came because of this? In 2 years, you'll be gone, and uncle and I will still be here. Listen to me." So in this moment again, Kel is being forced not to she's being begged by Lalasa, her friend who she loves and trusts, not to report this violation because it will make Lalasa's life harder. But that's injustice against Lalasa that Kel has to live with then, because Vincent, she knows, is going to do it again. It's Kel with this thing that she's going to have to live with. It's Lalasa realizing for the first time her own ability to defend herself, and also having somebody come through to fight for her, which she's never had before. This trauma opens up her past trauma, and she tells Kel some of the details that she never shared with her before about her past abuses and her family abuse. Kel for a moment is like, oh my god, is Gower doing that to you too? And she's like, no, Gower is the weird one in our family because he doesn't hit his women. This is also a moment for Kel to open up about... So Lalasa says something to the effect of, I'm sure nobody ever grabbed you before. So Kel tells her about her older brother, who is like a bit of an anomaly. Like, I don't even understand this character. Connell was his name, and when Kel was 4... so he would have been 14 or 13 years old, held her out of a balcony window. That is why she is afraid of heights. That is the origin of her terror of heights. And Lalasa says, no wonder you learned how to fight. No wonder you hate bullies. All right, so they finish up their 3rd year. Neil gets a wonderful little speech before their exams about how he hates the knighthood training, but he wouldn't have traded any of this for the academic training, including his friendship with Kel, because she has been an education all to herself for him. We go through their 3rd summer training camp. We see references to Mora of Dunlath. She's another character in the Immortal series. Stefan, I haven't mentioned Stefan. Stefan is background important. He is the head stableman. He has a touch of wild magic as well, specifically with horses. He is a character from way back in the Song of the Lioness series. He was always awkward, but he was a friend to George. George is now the spy master, the unnamed, unacknowledged spy master of Tortall. Stefan is assuredly reporting information about Kel to George and Alana and George being married. It's not something that if you don't know the series, you don't know that, but if you know the series, you know that. So Stefan has also been an admirer of Kel all this time because Kel took on Peachblossom. I mentioned Peachblossom earlier. Peachblossom was most likely going to be killed or put into some kind of unfortunate labor situation if he wasn't willing to cooperate with Kel, or if another page wasn't willing to take him on. So that in that way, Kel has always had Stefan's regard. He introduces here this tension of what is Peachblossom's fate going to be, because he was provided for Kel by the palace. Kel does not own Peachblossom. There's that in the background. She actually has a chapter titled The Vanishing Year, because at this point, like, the bullies are gone. We're just trying to get through the end of the page training. You know how this schoolyard cycle kind of works. There's some more advancing in the training and the changes in the training and how those things will seed and evolve later on in the series. It's building all to this rapid climax that takes a couple of chapters. We get all the way to the end of the 4th year. Lalasa is happy. Lalasa's got a commission from the queen. She's working on this gown with Tion for the queen, but she's going to prioritize Kel's page uniform for her final big exams, the exams that really matter to move on in Squire training. When Kel gets up that morning, the uniform is not done and Lalasa is not there, and she realizes Lalasa never came home the night before, and then she gets the note. They've kidnapped her. Somebody has kidnapped her, and if you tell anyone, we'll hurt her. Kel is now in this very difficult position. She's supposed to be going to her exams. If she's late, she's going to have to repeat her training. And she figures that's exactly why they did this. They're trying to make her late, to make her either repeat her training or quit. Or they have kidnapped her maid and she's going to go to the exams, and that will be dishonorable, actually, to Kel. To abandon her maid in this situation is going against everything that Kel is trained to be, protecting people and seeking justice and all that. But she can't tell anyone, according to this note, or they'll hurt her. So she doesn't want to involve the guard. And in fact, one of the other head servants, when Kel is looking for Lalasa, tells her, don't report Lalasa to the guard because they will subject her to the disciplines of a runaway servant. So Kel is kind of on her own. She has these three other servants. I guess the head servant's probably not really helping, but she's keeping her eye out. So Gower is searching, Tion is searching. Neil comes for Kel, and Kel does tell Neil what the situation is, so Neil understands, because Neil does not want her to miss her exams. He's like, are you crazy? We need to tell Wyldon. She's like, no, they'll hurt her if we tell. Now, this is where Kel being a kid is really in play, because she thinks if she doesn't show up to the exams, and Neil does too, if she doesn't show up, she's going to be forced to repeat her training. not realizing that the reason she's not showing up is because of criminal interference with her and her maid. That is not the kind of circumstance that Lord Wyldon would make somebody repeat their training for. That's clear at the end of the book. But at this moment, Kell is, I'm trapped. What do I do? Myself or my friend? My friend. I'm going to go save my friend. So she does. The needle. Kell is terrified of heights. Of course, they put Lalasa, not just Lalasa, but Jump, because Jump wasn't going to leave Lalasa alone. Lalasa, we find out later, told the kidnappers that Jump belonged to the Wild Mage, so if they killed the Wild Mage's dog, all the animals in the palace would attack and kill these people, and they believed her. This is important, too, for Lalasa's character's growth, because Lalasa was just as terrified of the Wild Mage when she was first brought up. Kell asks her to take Jump to Daine at one point, and Kell's like, Daine, can I get their names right? Lalasa's reaction is she'll turn me into something. And Kell's like, are you kidding me? But they get on from that, and Lalasa has now reached the point of she's using that against her kidnappers. She has the wherewithal to do that. Lalasa and Jump are tied to the top of Baylor's Needle. And then the kidnappers lock the inside door. So, of course, Lalasa and Kell have to climb down the outside of the stair. Nobody climbs down the outside of the stair. That means there are dozens of rusted stairs that break under them as they're going down this. The upside is Kell's paralyzing fear of heights is broken after this, which does make sense, doesn't it? That is true flooding to break a phobia. So she does. She rescues Lalasa. She maintains her honor. She upholds her duty. She rescues her friend. The healers come. Her mother's there. When she wakes up the next day, it's to Lord Wyldon, who's basically like, okay, it's time to get up now. And he's cheerful. It's like a completely different character. And he's talking in a really friendly way with Kell's mother. But Kell's mother is also unhappy with him because she's like, do you realize my child is killing herself for your training? This is not how this is supposed to go. So Wyldon is like, so what are you going to do now? She's like, I'm going to repeat my training. And he's like, are you serious? She's like, well, that's the punishment, isn't it? And he's like, I wish you were a boy. And he doesn't tell her one way or the other. In the mess hall, a magistrate comes and announces to everyone, because this was criminal interference, this was something that was beyond Page Keladry's control, she will be allowed to conduct her exams. She becomes a squire at the end of Page. Lord Wyldon has a conversation with her, letting her know that it probably is going to be a while before somebody picks her as a squire. And she's like, because I'm a girl. And he's like, well, yes, but also there's actually a congress going on in the summer, which just means that people are slower to hurry on their choices because they don't have somewhere else to be. And then he also concludes it with, I'm not going to try and make any guesses about what's going to happen for you because you've continued to prove me wrong. It's just illustrating his growth that is not done yet. And the final scene of the book is the latest best gift from her unknown benefactor, which is ownership paperwork and paid for care of Peachblossom for the next 4 years during her squire training. She doesn't have to give up her beloved horse. She gets to keep him with him probably forever in the rest of his life. I want to point out one structural thing before I end this video. At the beginning of First Test, the first book, the very first character that we hear speak is Alana. Alana being the Lady Knight who disguised herself as a boy, who is the main character of the Song of the Lioness, the first quartet series. She is our first character, and in First Test, she passes off the protagonist slot to Kell via that first chapter. The end of that book is Wyldon having the conversation with Kell that, yes, she can come back the next year. So he gets to have the last conversation with her, and then her unknown benefactor sends her a gift. So her unknown benefactor gets the last word in the first book. In this book, Lord Wyldon has the last conversation with her, and then the benefactor gets the last word with this gift. Goddess bless, I think it's Lady Squire. God's all bless Lady Squire. In that way, Alana, the unknown benefactor, gets to insert her last word after Wyldon's last word, at least in these first 2 books. And I like that. I really like Paige. Honestly, before I reread the series, I would have easily said Paige was my least favorite of the 4 books, but it's still like right up there with them. But I don't know now that it is, because Squire, I'll talk about next time, it drags just a little bit more than Paige does. It's like another 50 pages more than Paige is. And this book really centers Kell's friendships in a way that the other books can't. In this book, it's Merric and Sever and Esmond and Falarin and Owen and Rold and Neil, and she's with them all the time. These are her group of friends from 11 to 14. And then as a Squire, she's becoming more of the adult. She is with the King's Own instead, so her friends are mentioned much less, and one of them not at all. And then they come up again in A Lady Night, but still they're scattered because in that one they're at war and they're not all assigned together. Some of them are, most of them are not. We'll talk about that more in the next ones. Either way, page now, I think it's like this for like first place. And then it's like, I don't even know, maybe like this, something like that for third place, because these are all the best of books. I don't know if I want to quite call it the best of Tamara Pierce's writing, but other people have, and I really wouldn't disagree with them for saying so. I think some of the later series that got to be more closer to new adults have some complexity and depth that these ones weren't allowed to have. Just the writing, the craft of writing in these ones is really... There is flaws in it. I have talked about some, and there's another one that I'll talk about next time. I guess things can't actually be perfect. They have to have flaws in them for you to pick at. All right. I super appreciate you watching this. This is probably going to be a nightmare for me to edit. If you liked it, all that stuff. And I'll be back with Squire.